There was the cool musky scent of spices and golden poles of sunshine that tilted in to form a perfect circle of white light all around me. By then, I guess you could say that I was all the way in, laying on a white leather couch, looking up into a daytime sky full of planets, while inhaling the sobering aroma of surgical spirit, crepe bandages, and the gas leaked from black metal cylinders. I had Hail Mary, the heroine, beside me, and the reflection of a prostrate Truvian man looking back at me from a golden mirror that hung by a chain above my head. The seven wonders were there, projected onto the inside walls of the dome. Wonderful digitized elucidations that spoke to me with the voice of the central actor guiding me through the history of the pharmacy. "Merriment or psychedelia?" she asked. "Oh, psychedelia, please. Definitely psychedelia." In a blink there came towards me a bracelet of cosmic buttons, which once popped from their plastic dimples, rippled through Mary's fingers, and shone like Murano glass beads. She sent them rattling one by one into a chrome kidney tray. Their scent brought me to the edge of sensibility. In both colour and texture there was a peculiar softness, as of rainwater, and on closer scrutiny I noticed that each lozenge was strained with tiny flowers. At the heart of each one, etched inside and magnified by its curved surface, was a strange blue convoluted object that recalled memories of a barber shop chair in Conduit Street. When Mary offered me the tray, I couldn't help thinking that the view in Luke's mind would be that valuable resources were being wasted on a drifter like me. I snatched at the lozenge, put it in my mouth, laid back, got myself relaxed, and began to suck very slowly, winding the fruity lozenge around my tongue and gums, resting it on each patch of tongue for a few moments, and straining the juices through my teeth. Cherry, blackcurrant and orange flavours burst across my taste buds. I may not have been able to articulate synthetic at that time, but I could taste it in every micro-milliliter of spit. In a flash, all of the painted murals inside the dome switched off and came alive, augmenting so acutely with the reality around that it gave me a chilling thrill that tore through me like an indiscriminate blizzard, from flat pitches to living, breathing psychedelia in one thumping heartbeat. The brain of Lucky's lozenge had taken a hold of me and was shaking me violently in its grip. I was no longer chasing the dragon. I was inside the works, being consumed by an orgasm of colour, speeding faster and faster and round, with the excitement coming so hard and fast that I couldn't differentiate between fact and fiction. I was no longer a biological entity in a spiritual world. I was part of the divine on a tour through the treasures of a Disney Vatican, floating through Charleston's pictures as one would aboard an illusory arcade game, with the agony and ecstasy of each piece viewed on a three-dimensional journey without the need for special glasses, and accompanied by the sort of trumped-up soundtrack usually heard aboard a theme park cable car. More synthesized plants emerged through the mist of dry ice, and a bland commentary of almost continuous cliches spoken in the hushed and reverential tone of a holy man. All of which was slightly irrelevant, because the illusion delivered the one thing that truly mattered: escape. By the time I found reality again, all around me had fallen silent. I was sitting on a travelling machine, with the fierce light that enveloped me bringing the machine into a starker relief. A roller coaster without seatbelts, just instrument binnacles, levers and gear shifts. A machine that could have been painted by artistic gypsies on Blackpool's Golden Mile, built on the wooden boards trodden upon by Barnum at the Palladium. As it spun around, I held onto the dashboard and noticed a tiny prayer book left to write devotional messages in. Next to it, a vial of holy ashes and a golden plastic rosary. Below them, in shining script, were the words, "Jane, full of grace, the lady is within thee." I saw what I thought was a brake pedal at my feet, but when I pressed hard, it felt as though I was riding a cerebral bull, being whipped faster and deeper into its mechanical nerves. For a while, the lozenge, with its ability to make me feel cocooned, seemed to keep my demons at bay. Then, to the detriment of my perception, the school of particles travelling through my veins suddenly changed direction, and my demons came creeping back to crowd my hallways in even greater numbers. Thousands were shouting, "Out! Demons, out!" The trip, that first seemed to promise departure and relief, was turning traitor, increasing the dread in exponential style. Like the pictures in a cinematic lantern, the revolving door of mirrors in my mind began to spin even faster. Gradually, everything came together into a wide-angled snapshot of infinity. I looked between the reins and out through the iridescent surface of a giant soap bubble, saw the light shuttering Venetian shadows across the machine's wooden deck. With the planet behind me hidden from view, I began to think about how many of life's mysteries were still hidden from me. Everything I knew and didn't know determined by the phenomenon of colours. All the colours of the spectrum seen by Newton in the magic performed by a prism playing tricks with perspective. An asteroid flew toward me and stopped dead in front of me. When it proceeded to look over the machinery of the craft with the compound eye of a fly, forensically examining the light converter and the underside before hurtling off into deep space, I was able, like a heretic, to calculate the chemical composition of every bright object in the black sky around me. Slowly I began to read the story of the stars, my eyes like microscopes revealing the exquisite detail in the body of an insect on the back of my hand, by turning a ladybird into the size of a cat. Those who are fully enlightened claim that when entering into a trip, partisans should feel two emotions, fear and desire. The fear of what you may find within the trip, and the desire to travel deeper and faster into it. I could feel the craft becoming more responsive. A physical rocket was breathing all around me, hissing, cupping, spitting air from its pistons. When I pushed the lever, there came a deep thrumming sound from the oiled movement of 1,000 pushrods, and the rapping of a demonic mechanical typewriter that went on in a shrill, almost unbearable clatter. Out into space flew streaks of rainbow light, pulsating one every second. What with the fear and the desire, and having to govern with rein and foot pedals while keeping an eye on the air counter and pace indicator, I began to panic and reacted in exactly the same way a learner driver would placed in an automatic car for the first time. I pressed both feet down hard on the pedal. It just made the thing go faster. From the cosmic corridors that surround me, information streamed into my ears and my eyes. Distant planets came exploding into my mind. I saw their rivers and their valleys, their diversions into political turmoil, the founding fathers of their science, the sound of merriment from their medieval dead, the sound of their brandy houses and slack-rope sideshows. Fully trying to catch the buzz of the people, I closed my eyes and breathed in. Into my mind flowed golden ribbons of magic. The gates opened and there was majesty around. I was back at the very beginning, like my life had just begun. It was then that they came. Suddenly it all came to a stop and I was standing before them, my body glowing ripe with an indigo rainbow spinning around me. I watched the violet strip away from the spectrum. It joined my fingertips in streams of brilliant colour. When I bowed down to smile at them, they seemed to understand. I counted 7 vertical rainbows standing before me, each one a sentinel guarding the shaft of starlight that beamed between them, and whilst I waited for my letter to be answered, they passed the time, processing, tunefully resonating. I saw a picture of the death of young people who were in the midst of life, a little red house, a little white house, and clouds of Zyklon B. In this part of space there were no nearby stars to warm. The clock read -20. I pulled a lever marked heater and warm air began to fill the bubble. Death corridors don't come with a risk-free guarantee, but at least they have their centre to keep to. I held on tightly to the reins and looked down at the counter on the side of the craft. It seemed to read the entire age of the universe and the distance in years that I travelled forwards in time. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and through the swirling tricolour wheel came a real colour. It was as though the whole universe was trying to form colours and talk to me in a human voice. Images of fresh green trees, crisp red apples, orange fruits, and a life beyond the black, white and red flashed before my eyes. When I looked up, Mary's eyes were shining with enthusiasm. She tapped the back of my hand. "Sol, are you back with us?" When I pulled myself up onto the edge of the couch, it felt so long that Mary seemed a mile away. And like an atomic brain testing its lighting system, the aftermath of a power train of musical plasma mapped its way around the inside of the dome, like Chinese firecrackers, through neon clouds sparking, illuminating the blue-white blocks around the skylight. Mary pressed the edge of a slab of rock, and it swung open. She waved me on, and I walked alone down a passageway and onto a long set of golden stairs, which led me down into a basement. A jungle of chirps and squeaks, and a warm, wet smell mixed with the faint stench of a stale aquarium wafting around me. The animals that roamed around the lower floors had the enterprise under the spotlight of the authorities. They were fully licensed for flowers, but not animals. The main concerns were for cross-contamination as a moral issue. A hall full of tropical birds, some hopping around the floor, others in cages like animals at a pet shop. Storks and flamingos strutted about, whilst dyed fan-tailed doves flew around the lights. Clusters of purple grapes and berries, each the size of golf balls, glowed through the lamps like jewels setting in the glow of a sun. I was in the entrance hall of the original Garden of Eden, walking in awe past blue hairy plants, yellow nutty fruit trees, and rows of foundlings, the unwanted creatures abandoned on the pharmacy doorstep, purple cabbage patch kids who gurgled and yawned in the orphanage. Stirred by my passing, flowers opened and pulsed at me from every side. The firs conferred with the fruit trees, while their round hairy nuts lolled around in the cockleshell breeze. Gazing across the huge dimly lit vista, there were regiments of seashells jutting out from the walls, and endless rows of glass tanks atop riveted metal stands. Most of the tanks were dark, but in one I could see fish staring quietly. As their gills strained the water, their antennae swished from side to side, transmitting tiny signals to dozing brains. I ducked under vine leaves and into a room which felt like a sauna. Haggard shafts of light glanced in between the swirling ceiling fans, and seen under the changing glimpses, the room, with its laid-back palms and weeping leaves, seemed in my mind like a city garden after a monsoon. There were dozens of aquariums, each one bearing a skull and crossbone in black and white paint, and a huge sign, "Very dangerous, keep away." As I tried to read the labels on each of the dark tanks, now and then one would catch a flash of green light from a shallower tank, and a piece of living history surfaced to ogle me. Prehistoric spines stood threateningly erect, while mottled stripes turned to a uniform muddy red. There was a protracted hiss as broad, wing-like pectorals rose slightly. The next room was alive with water, light, and the sound of dripping from the glass tubes. In the medicine bottles that lined the walls, the balsams had resolved long ago. With the time and the glow of the lights, the royal dye had softened. As I ventured further, the mist lifted, and the reflection of dreamlike signals danced all around me like northern lights. A sign that read, "Because they are unprotected most of the time, eggs of oviparous mammals have a tough and leathery shell." Next to it was another sign, "Special offer." As I ventured further, the mist lifted, and the reflection of dreamlike signals danced all around me like northern lights. A sign that read, "Because they are unprotected most of the time, eggs of oviparous mammals have a tough and leathery shell." Next to it was another sign, "Special offer." With the slow tempo music which played all round, it was impossible to determine what came first, the sense that she was begging for attention, or the acute fascination I was feeling. All I knew is that I didn't want to be swept away into making an impulsive purchase I would later regret. Aquariums take some looking after, but always being one to follow my bliss, I was soaking up everything and swimming around the edge of the experience. Pricking at my psychic skin was another thing that flirted with me through chinks of light, the bargain of the century, a water bombshell that set all my sirens going. I just turned and bam! My calm was ravaged by a buxomly seductive hybrid, half woman, half fish. The nameplate read Grace, and she had style to match, gently swishing back and forth behind a cigarette in a warm salt water tank held together by rusting bolts. Save for the whine of the pumps, all was silent, and I stood for a moment, gaining my breath in amazement, as she dropped the cigarette into its holder and dipped under the water to catch a fish. She took a bite, chewed and swallowed slowly, all the time watching for my reaction through the murky haze and plumb line of bubbles that rose from her nose. She held herself up and out of the water by her tail, with her hands resting on jutting hips, and a look in her eye that said, "I'm the only diva." As I moved closer, the flirting began properly. I could only liken the sequence to the courtship dance of an octopus. First, there were the copulatory glances, intense eye contact broken momentarily by lifting and lowering of her eyes. She followed this with smiles, coy looks and a tossing of the head as she mirrored me whilst I walked around the tank with the reflection of her scales flashing in my glasses. Tempted by the vapour, musks and ambers as sweet as a garden transmitting a scent to fill all heaven and earth, I drew a great couch from its place by the potted palms, swept off the dust, climbed upon it, slipped off my shoes and trousers, and once the pounding in my blood had softened, lowered myself into the water. There were no words with Grace, only clicks and slaps on the surface of the water. What use would words be? They could never explain the way that I was feeling. As soon as every animal is born, it seeks after pleasure and spends a life rejoicing in it as the greater good, while rejecting pain as the greatest bad, and as far as possible avoids it, and does this with all the innocence and sound judgment of Mother Nature herself. There was no need to discuss why pleasure should be pursued. It was a matter sense like the heat of fire, the whiteness of snow, and the sweetness of honey. Hers was a waiting smile, and of course a girl should never be left waiting, and I wouldn't want to be remembered as uncaring or unthinking, so I made towards her with my eyes closed and a kiss composed and ready on my lips. Recalling it now is like being in a dream, the journey back to her, the intrepidation and concern about how the kiss should be. Just enough pressure to excite, not so much as to repel. I wouldn't want to startle her. Drifting around the water with eyes half closed, I'm sure that I fell asleep at some point, but I know now that I'm sitting here wide awake in the full broad sunlight filling this room. I can't in the least believe that I was fully asleep all the way through the experience. What sticks in the mind? The dazzling ceiling lights dancing on the surface of the pale green water, the window behind her framing her figure, and by half she was a lady. As fair can be, there was no dreaming there. She came closer to me and looked over me for some time, smiling with her teeth so pearly white, reflecting the ruby blush of her lips, voluptuous and longing. I prayed to my heart that she had something to bring to the kiss, that she felt at least a little wickedness. Lifting up her hair and tying it into a lemon ribbon, without dropping her eyes from me, she seemed to whisper. It's difficult to explain the sound that was placed inside my mind, like a silvery musical whisper, a sound that could never survive the briskness of human lips, the tingling sweetness of watery wine glasses played around by tricky wet fingers. I lowered myself deeper into the water until it came almost shoulder high and she was nodding, coquettishly calling me on, and as far as the chords of my memory will allow, I swear that I heard female words in my mind. Go on, then. You should begin and I will follow. You are young and nerdy. I have lots of kisses for you. It was no illusion. I heard those words as clear as a ship's bell, and all through them the haunting sense of unexpressed womanhood with which I was being teased and tempted. She handed me a slim glass tube that looked more like an antique syringe than a smoking device. When she pressed a button, the chamber filled with a cloud of purple, and soon we were wreathed in the scented vapour trail that wound itself around us. It was a quiet drifting, looking out under my eyelashes in an ecstasy of anticipation, with my heart thumping in my soaked shirt, my mouth as dry as salty fish, and the tide inside me rising. She came towards me with gentle swirls of her tail, came closer, came so close that I could feel the movement of her breath on my shoulder. Sweet it was in one sense, honey sweet. It sent the same tingling sensation coursing through my nerves as her unspoken words, but with a bitter mixed with the sweet, a bitter offensiveness, as one smells in smoked haddock. I was afraid to raise my eyelids, but looked out and saw perfectly under the lashes. She arched her tail and came right out of the water above me. Grace watched me, and I watched her, her tousled hair intent and warm under the heat lamps, and then the extraordinary union of our eyes and our bodies. The flame that suddenly lit between us, between two beings thrown together from different species, worlds apart, each involved in their own strange relationship with the universe. Dreamers, in essence, turned by the order of nature into starry-eyed lovers embraced in a kiss. Something began to rumble under the tank. Instinctively I took her by the hand. In a moment the floor had ruptured, glass and tide met, and the tank smashed, swallowed by a crunching sinkhole. There was no splash. Like a quick shot of oil fired into the water, she was gone, pulling me with her. Through the tumultuous rocks we tumbled over and out into a sunset that was turning everything gold. At the first sight of freedom, her tail began to unwind faster than her arms could explain. It was the story of her father and the rebellion, told to me in the language of a dream. She burst open a can of Cypher, and I took a breath. When I held her hand, the cool sea breeze blew away the sands of time, plunging deeper and deeper, down and down, over the underwater mountains to a canyon we swam, with my brain so full I couldn't keep it all in, side by side with wild seahorses as they changed through their coating colours, and past the painted fish that no metal men could claim, over the underwater bridges to the abyss with no name. With a pressure on my chest like a car engine, I stepped out onto the ledge and finally gave in. I felt as though I had enough air in my lungs to last a lifetime. The white rocky shelf slipped upwards behind us, into a crystal grey that blended away into a philosophic green, and down we went into the sunless depths of the ocean, swimming into a vacant immensity that was drowning all logic. High above us the surface of the sea was a canopy quicksilver, the bubbles from my nose streaming skyward like a fountain of chrome pearls into the milky light of day. Below us the invisible underclass were going about their daily routine, the denizens of the deep, nightmarish apparitions bristling with fangs and fluorescence. Boneless blobs bloomed and swelled into visions of lurking malevolence. As their glowing lures spilled silently all around us, squid with scarlet eyes whisked on by, their flashing bodies exciting the blind minds of dozing octopi who performed delicate contortions before jetting off into the darkness to wake the murderous hearts that wait for swimmers in the black abyss below all dreams. As their glowing lures spilled silently all around us, squid with scarlet eyes whisked on by, their flashing bodies exciting the blind minds of dozing octopi who performed delicate contortions before jetting off into the darkness to wake the murderous hearts that wait for swimmers in the black abyss below all dreams. Still prone to fangs of agoraphobia, I tried to modulate my fear and noticed a movement in the corner of my eye. A silhouette 30 metres away, slipping through the turquoise haze. Something with a fat snub nose and a bright white belly was studying me. It began to circle. I stuck it out for as long as I dared, treading water, not taking my eyes off it. Trying to avoid panic splash, I kicked towards Grace. The shadows of more sharks came above us. Liquid bullets of muscle, hard tail fins. Their capsized grins sent merciless pearls of wisdom streaming through my dreams of a peaceful coexistence. When the greatest of them all emerged from the gloom, time stopped. He spanned back and forth, inspecting me. His silhouette beside me, while the white belly of another was 6 foot above me, circling me like a fighter plane, with a puckered scar of his mouth streaming bubbles, his blunt nose buried in the scent of me, and the quivering scythe of his tail moved slowly out of a moonstone wall of water, curious about me and my bubbles, circling around me. Grace signalled me to ask if I was okay, and like a pack of silent wolves obeying her command, they all swayed in the current and followed us through the tunnel of water. I was looking over my shoulder for trouble. When I turned, gobstopper eyes were looking straight at me, and a giant's head was driving straight towards me. A curved jaw opened, and I saw my whole life flashing around a crooked cemetery of teeth. There was a deathly yawn, a grunting whoosh, and a wall of water. Then silence. In a moment, Grace was at my side. Her dilated eyes couldn't help staring at the brown stain that drifted up from my trousers and spread wider and wider across the water. As quickly as they appeared, they all slipped back into the gloom. She took me by the hand and led me to rest in a mass of sprawling coral, where I was able to relax my breathing. A faint glimmer of yellow iron showed on the seabed, and as the sandy floor of the ocean moved upwards, with every fathom its flicker grew brighter and brighter. Tiny neon fish played around us, and leading the way ahead were dozens of phosphorescent starfish. So attractive, the sandy bottom soon came up as bright as day, and I could see the virginal trees of an underwater rainforest, a rolling vista so virtuous, and not a single sight of humanity. No cars, no diners, no choking plumes of smoke, just endless rumbling silence, and a water world that in a single day had disappeared beneath the waves. When I first saw the submarine, I knew it was a statement, and the statement was, "I am bigger and better rounded than anything you have ever seen." As we got closer, there was an aquatic festival of a welcome from Wing Commander Lushington. Air horn blasts, toots from a cathedral organ, and a mechanical seahorse that joyfully ejaculated a jet of water to mark our arrival. The hastening rhythm of the water that thundered all around us dimmed my senses to the buffeting tempest of a sea horn. It spun me around and around into a huge doorway where I was faced with a scene so extraordinary. Now I have seen sea creatures that don't know their place, and fish that walk on dry land, but nothing had prepared me for a deep-sea fish that stared incuriously at me from the neck of a boiled white shirt. She pressed her palms to his pincers. There were several seconds of chirping before they began blowing bubbles together. They tail-walked, they pirouetted side by side, they turned circles in the water, and with the blue flame still burning gently behind his eyes, after 8 almost perfect synchronized somersaults, their dance ended. From the moment I first encountered Nat Coley, with his huge bony head and monstrous pincers, he impressed and scared me in equal measure. As far as I was concerned, he had stood up to the king and his fascist FET, and had lived to tell the tale. He invited me to sit beside him, and through a saline smile began to tell me about his life beneath the waves. "Good afternoon," he said in bubbles of thought that jiggled from his lips. "The plankton has indeed been a long time coming to the whale."